gender, sex, sexuality, social constructivism, or an innate sense of self. These are some of the things I've lately had a lot of arguments with people online and had a lot of discussion with in chats with other people. So I thought maybe it was about time that I put down some of my ideas in a video, just so you guys can know where I'm coming from. Hi, I'm Jenny, and welcome to Jen's Little Corner. Sex and gender is such a complicated topic in this day and age. There are so many opposing views and opinions out there that sometimes it can be quite hard for somebody from the outside to understand where a trans person or anybody else in the LGBT community is coming from. If you're born cis, as in cisgendered, somebody who associates with the gender that they were assigned at birth, then it can be very easy to look at other people who don't associate that way, who are trans or non-binary, and just go, well, that's just stupid and weird, and there's no way they can be absolutely honest about this. It is very hard to explain the experience of somebody who's trans to somebody who isn't, because you didn't have to go through that. You didn't have to have that incongruity between your mind and your body. It is a hard thing to try to understand when the person at the other end of the conversation is just saying to you, believe me, and you've got no reference point to take it from. We can give you examples of like, well, how would you feel if you woke up in another body, or the body of the opposite sex, and if you say this to a guy, they'll probably go, oh great, I can play with my own tits. But to be perfectly frank, get pretty tired of your own body fairly quickly, and you just want to go back to being yourself. The reality for trans people is that incongruity between how our mind is and how our body is creates a lot of anxiety within us. Anxiety, depression, self-loathing. Whilst not all trans people have all these things to the same levels, and some people don't even have incongruity to their bodies, but more to the social aspects of being the other gender, this in no way belittles their experience. So if you're a cis person trying to understand what it is to be trans, I don't think you can go much further than Sarah Pascoe's description in her book Animal. So I've become hyper-aware of my womanhood, and that's made me think a lot about what gender even is. I have daydreams where I wonder, what if I woke up with a penis? Would I still be a woman? Imagine someone, as a horrible prank, has sewn a penis on me and I have to walk about with it in my trousers. But I'd still feel like a woman. I'd just be a woman with a penis. So it's not my genitals that define me. So what then? Ovaries? Womb? If they were removed, I'd still be a woman. I'd be a wombless woman with a penis. If I took lots of testosterone, had my breasts removed, had a deep voice and a beard and short hair, at what point would I drop the female and become a comedian? I have decided that it's my mind that's a woman. It's my narrator. It's my relationship to myself. And oddly, nothing at all to do with my body. The fact is, trans people are real, we're here, and if you're cis, it's something you're going to have to deal with at some point. While we are a small part of the population, probably less than 1%, there are enough of us that most of you will encounter one of us at some point in your lives. And if you think that's unlikely, then what about intersex people? Now, I'm in a unique position, well, not unique, there's quite a few of us, but I'm in one of the rarer positions where I am both intersex and trans. Intersex people make up at least 1 in 1,000 people within the population. So, the chances are many people you know in your life are intersex. They may not even know they're intersex. A lot of intersex people do not know they are intersex. Although I had signs of it when I was growing up, I did not find out I was intersex until I was in my 20s. Although I'd already identified as being trans from a young age, I knew from about 8 and identified it to my parents at about the age of 10. The aspects of me being intersex didn't start to show until I actually hit puberty, at which point I started to grow breasts and had other things happen to me like period cramps and various other things that usually only young girls get, which I was absolutely elated to have, by the way, because it justified me as far as I was concerned. But it was something that was like, yeah. It was also a source of bullying and othering of me as a person in my teenage years. For me, being intersex was a bit of a relief to discover. It gave more meaning to my identity. Many trans people don't have that, but that doesn't make them any less valid. Intersex conditions are a break from the bimodal nature of sex. As human beings, we have two sexes, male and female. But this isn't a hard, fast two sexes. This is a bimodal distribution. Most people are male or female. But intersex people aren't quite exactly either. There are differences in their genetic codes that make them a variation within that bimodal nature of sex. For me, I'm what's called a chimera. I have both XX and XY cells in my body. There are other types of intersex. There are people with two X's and a Y in all their cells. There are people with two Y's and people with only an X and all other weird and wonderful variations. This is a natural variation of being human, and we should embrace that and be happy that it's part of us. And the same goes for trans people. Trans people are a natural variation. There is large debates whether trans people are born or made. There's aspects of this argument that come down to nurture or nature. On the one hand, you have the people who have strongly revolved their ideas around social constructivism, the aspect where the pressures of society to conform to a certain stereotype has influences on one's gender identity. That is to say, if you have more archetypes of female within your life, but were perhaps born male, you may grow up to identify more female than male. I don't actually subscribe to this idea. I am more a case of nature over nurture. There is strong evidence that the sexual dimorphism of our brain occurs during hormonal wash during the second and third trimesters of pregnancy. It has been shown during brain scan studies of trans and cis people that there is a bimodal variation in male and female brains. As in, there are brains that are more female and brains that are more male. This is related to the parts of the brain that have to do with self-identity. In trans people, the makeup of this part of the brain appears to be more in correlation with the gender that they identify as. So for a trans woman, their brain is actually more like a cis woman's. And for a trans man, their brain is more like a cis man's. This is strong evidence towards the nature aspect of being trans, but it's not conclusive. There are still many, many more experiments to go. There is also pointers within the genetics. There are 6 base pairs on the chromosomes that have shown strong correlation to being trans. So this is another aspect of nature that seems to point towards the trans condition. I have other issues with social constructivism other than it tends to ignore these natural foundations for trans people. one of the other issues I have is that if you say something is solely created by the social environment around a person, then surely that position of theirs that they are a woman trapped in a man's body can be fixed through psychotherapy. But we know this isn't the case. Offering aversion or conversion therapy to trans people has only actually caused more stress to them than it has ever cured. And if we're going to go down the road of saying that being trans is a social construct, then it logically follows that sexuality is also a social construct. And I'm pretty sure most gay and lesbians and bi people are not going to be happy with that claim either. This is why I don't follow the mantra of social constructivism. I find that it is a dangerous road to take. But having said that, some of the aspects of social constructivism are obviously quite true. The gender roles that people have within a society are largely formed out of the social impacts that are around those people. Now, there is often a biological basis behind this, i.e. men being typically stronger than women and women being the ones who bear children, have shaped these gender roles over time. But as we've evolved as a species, we've been more able to shape these roles ourselves and leaving our biological nature out of it. Which means the gender roles that we have now are not necessarily based on our biology. So we've come to a new point in history where these roles don't necessarily correlate with a historical idea of what it is to be male and female. These roles are social constructs to a large extent. And trans people often try to fill those social roles very well, but not all trans people do. Many trans people are just happy to get the body that fits their brain and forge their own social role, separate from what society deems is the social norm. This is also a pointer that social constructivism is wrong. But this is just my opinion on this. I don't honestly think this matters, or it shouldn't matter. As long as people in general accept that trans people are who they say they are, as long as trans people are afforded the same rights as other people, as long as trans people are accepted as the gender we claim to be, and allowed the positions within that gender, I see no problems. But there are elements of the community who would like trans people to do nothing more than fucking disappear off the planet. Especially if you're a religious conservative or a far left radical feminist who absolutely hate trans people. So close in ideology are these that one actually funds the other. But on the whole, I think most people out there in the world can just accept that trans people, even if you don't fully understand it, are probably who they claim they are. And if we're going to be nice and honest and decent human beings, we're just going to let them get on with their lives, live them in peace, and not throw a hissy fit every time you see one in a toilet. The toilet argument especially gets my goat. Because, let's face it, where would you want me? Should I have to go in the guys' loos? Because there's a handful of cis women who absolutely fucking hate the idea of trans people? No, of course not. Where am I going to be in most danger? In the guys' loos. If I walked in a guys' loos, it would be fucking hell to pay. And what risk is there to cis women with trans women using the female toilets? I know a lot of them think there are big risks, and I know predators like Jessica Yaniv don't help the case. But you are talking about isolated cases, and isolated cases will happen in any demographic. On the whole, most trans people are far more afraid of the cis people in the world than the other way around. Most trans people wouldn't even consider using a public restroom if they didn't have to. especially if they were one who maybe struggled to pass. So these things are non-issues. These are just people with hate in their hearts, yelling at the rooftops at a minority that is already under pressure from society. As good people, we should be better than this. Everyone should be better than this. So anyway guys, that's pretty much my take. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you hate my take, I don't give me a thumbs down. I really don't care. I just wanted to get my ideas out there. And remember, whilst you're pondering all these things, try not to choke on the selfie stick.